Welcome back. We're joined by Detective Sergeant Martineau of Belleville Police Services, and we're so happy that we're going to be talking about some real-time insight into fraud in the Quinte area.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Detective Sergeant Martin Charbonneau. How long have you been a police officer? And tell us a bit about the fraud squad.
So I've been in with Belleville Police for about 20 years now, and I've been in our crime division for approximately 2 years. As far as fraud, I'd say it's certainly more prevalent today than it would have been 5 to 10 years ago, especially with technology. But being a smaller unit, we probably have I have about 2 detectives that probably do the majority of our fraud investigations, but we still have to multitask and take on other types of investigations as well.
Close to $700 million in Canada. People have lost over fraud situations, and in our area, in our region, millions as well. Like, what's going on?
It's just, again, like these fraudsters are evolving as technology improves, and it's like anything else. Technology has been good for our way of life, but it's also given an opportunity for criminals to up their game as well and utilize those technologies to gain from us.
One of the frauds I've been reading about is romance fraud. And I remember with the morning show on Mix 97 interviewing a listener that lost over $20,000. This gentleman was working in an oil rig somewhere, they connected online, and then she sent money for him to come visit, couldn't make it. Then eventually it gets down to $20,000, and the individual just disappears online. Can you explain more about romance fraud, and what are some of the signs?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, and with that one on 20,000, that's unfortunately, this is unfortunate to say, but it's probably on the smaller end of things, because we've had some that are upwards of $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 that have disappeared over the course of months or years. And so these people will stick with it as long as you're willing to send them money, right? And oftentimes, this is where they're going to prey on a vulnerable moment in your life. And this is one of those where we've seen it, where at times they're going to go on, whether it's sites for like bereavement sites, for example. So they'll go somewhere, so it's a bereavement site that will help people connect with others who have lost a loved one or a spouse, and then they're going to then also emulate the similar loss, and they're going to come back and say, well, I've also lost my spouse. And then they'll start befriending them, which will eventually turn into an online relationship. And then as they gain your trust, then they start asking for money, whether it's, my car broke down, whether I have a family member that's in dire need of some financial aid. And then over the months, like it may be a $5,000 here, $10,000 there, and then 2 years into it, next thing you know, it's $600,000 gone.
And when that's happening, are there red flags that the person receiving these emails should be looking for, recognizing that they are in a vulnerable state? And I often say to people, sometimes we want something so badly that we ignore those red flags.
Absolutely. And we've run across these individuals at times where we've had family members or friend reach out to us, ask them to speak to them because they're recognizing it's a fraud, but they're refusing to accept it because for them that relationship is real. Even though they've never met that person, to them it's still their boyfriend or their girlfriend, and they have built this sense of a relationship with this person over the course of those months. And so sometimes it is very difficult to convince these individuals that it is in fact fraudulent. But some of those signs is exactly that, and we find like there's probably most of these frauds, and they all take on a similar kind of, occupation. For example, like they're either working on oil rigs, which is why they're never able to be home. Yeah. Another one could be they're Doctors Without Borders. So same thing, they're traveling across the world, and that's why I can't come see you as much. And even now technology today with AI, right? So some of these people said, well, I've had a conversation over video with these people, but again, they're just AI deepfakes.
Yeah, and I think as a community, the response has to be there, not just on the people that are being victimized, right?
Absolutely.
Because I noticed I've had some people be kind of upset. Then they've gone to the bank and they've tried to withdraw money, particularly if you're in an older age group, and the teller is questioning or trying to get additional information. And I have said to them, that is for your protection. Yes, you are on the ball in terms of like that you're asking for something that's legitimate, but they are trying to help from a community perspective about stopping some of this, because I have had experience with other people where that did help them. That was the boundary right there when they were questioned by a community member, a teller, saying, you know, I'm really concerned about this, or tell me a little bit more about this. And again, I do think that the perpetrators are understanding this is happening now, because they are also giving script. How do you respond to the teller if they try to throw up a barrier? So they are ahead of us in many ways, the perpetrators, on, you know, what safeguards may be in place. Would that be correct?
Oh, absolutely. So as in the policing world, we're constantly playing catch up, right? Because as we kind of catch on to their trends or what they're doing, and we're able to counter that, then they're going to move on to the next one, right? And because that's their job. Like, it's a business to them, right? It's purely transactional. And a lot of it has links to organized crime. So yeah, absolutely.
Martin, could you share with our audience today where you caught a con live in action, real time? Can you share us a story, just a scenario for people to understand?
So this one that I can discuss, it's more so, I guess the theme behind that might be more of like an identity theft scenario where, and again, this is one of those where we say, you know, fraud, a lot of it through education, you can probably, you know, figure out a way to combat it and try to prevent it. When it comes to identity theft, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's very difficult. Because at some point in time, like especially now with the way technology is, your information, your personal information is everywhere on the internet. If you make a purchase from a company that's internet-based, then all your information is there. Like, it may not be there for the public to have, but there's lots of nefarious people out there that have the know-how on how to hack into these companies. And so at some point or another, we've all been part of a data leak. And so what happens with those data leaks eventually is somebody will get a hold of that, and what they look for is a really good profile. Somebody's got good credit and so forth, and so they're going to grab all your personal information. They're going to use the con or the criminal's picture. They're going to transpose it onto a driver's license and any other identifying documents with the person that they stole the identity from. So the one we ran into is one where it was a theft of a vehicle, but essentially it was a local dealership that was selling a very expensive vehicle. It was around $125,000, $130,000 vehicle. And what they did is they secured a loan ahead of time. And luckily they had somebody at the dealership that thought, you know, something here just doesn't seem to add up. Like, it's a big purchase. They're coming from the Montreal area, and everything seems to be too good to be true. So they called us, and we actually made contact with the person that they were pretending to be, and they said, yeah, we never went to Belleville, never purchased anything. So we quickly caught on that this was, very well organized, and so we sat on the dealership. The two individuals showed up, and we were able to make an arrest. But essentially that vehicle was pretty much slated to go right to a Montreal shipyard and was going to be going overseas within days of the purchase. And then what happens with that is now somebody has a loan under their name, but they're unaware of it. But then 3 to 4 months later, now they're starting to get calls from creditors saying, hey, you got a $130,000 loan and you haven't made a payment yet. And then next thing you know, that's when you find out that your identity's been stolen, and now there's various loans in your name out there. So that's kind of like the gist of what happened there.
Do our laws protect us?
So with those things, yeah. So with those ones, generally speaking, not that those loans get wiped away, but essentially you're not going to be responsible for those loans. Where you're not protected is where you're the one physically making the transfer of those funds. And so with those ones, the way to protect yourself, you have TransUnion or Equifax. You can set up, ways to be alerted if somebody were to submit a request for a loan through your credit, then they would contact a phone number on file, which would be yours. Because what these con artists do is they may have all of your personal information, but they're going to provide their phone number to be called back to confirm these loans and all that. So if you have it set up through those companies that I just discussed, then they're going to call the number that was originally put on file, which is your phone number, and you'll have the ability to cancel that before it even happens.
You really have to be on your game. Like, there's the crypto fraud, the bank scams, we get text messages, somebody pretending to be a federal government employee, all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you can see where people get taken advantage of.
Yes. And on those ones, I'd say they prey on a sense of urgency, right? The panicking.
Yeah.
They try to get you into a sense of or a panic mode so that you're now making decisions that you wouldn't make if you weren't in that type of situation, right? And we get that through the bank investigator frauds, or you have the grandparent one that was fairly prevalent a couple of years ago, maybe not as much today, but that's what they were doing at the time for sure.
So Martin, what, just for people watching, are there certain things they should be watching for as of today? We talked about romance scams. We talked about, well, Sean had just mentioned in terms of calling, the tax calls.
Yeah.
Are there certain things that people should be particularly aware of today?
So I mean, I'm sure I get those calls every day. I get text messages every day. You get the fake number texts where
Yes.
they text, hey, and they give you, I don't know, it's John, how are you? And so, well, this isn't John. Oh, well, you seem nice. They start a conversation and it leads into more down the road. So all those things, it's like, just don't respond. Same thing when the phone calls are coming in. If it's an unknown number, don't respond. But the problem now is they can spoof the numbers. And so they can make it look like they're calling from your financial institution. So if you bank with TD, it may look like you're getting a phone call from TD Bank, but you're not. Right? And so the biggest thing to do with those things, especially when they start to prey on a sense of urgency, especially when they're asking for money, hang up. Call the number that you have on the back of your bank card, your credit card, because that's the trusted number you can call. But don't just start giving your credentials away to somebody that's contacted you on the phone. Even if you know it's your bank. I've done it before where I knew it was my bank calling, and I said I'd be more comfortable if I was to call you back. And I didn't ask for a phone number, I called the phone number that I knew belonged to my bank. And that's one way to protect yourself. And another way is just educate yourself, right? I mean, because like anything else, like right now we're saying the bank investigator fraud is a big one that we're seeing currently, but next year it could be a whole different scam that'll become more prevalent.